It just means it's done. 7 seals. So 7 is a sign of completion. This scroll that we're talking about, this scroll that is in the hand of God, is the title deed to the earth. Okay? It's the title deed to the earth. All right, we're going to talk about that. I want you to hold on to that. It's the title deed to the earth. It is, your house. You can live in your house. You can live in your house for a long time, but if you don't have the deed, you have no ownership, no ability to sell, no real rights. This is the title deed to the earth. Satan has been living. Cool. He's been living in the house, but he does not have the deed to the house, okay? Verse 2, he says, then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice. He says, who is worthy to open the scroll and loose its seals? All right, now this is an introduction to Jesus. Now remember, Jesus hadn't entered into this picture yet. John gets in heaven. He sees God sitting on the throne. You got the 24 elders sitting behind him. You got the 4 beasts that have this personage tattooed on their face of Jesus, but Jesus has not entered yet. Okay, he's not entered yet. John is just kind of taking a glimpse around heaven, just taking a look, taking a gander, a view, but he's not entered yet. And it presents this question that I want to wrestle with for just a second. He says, the angel asks, who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals? This presents the question, can man solve its own problems? Since the very fall of man, and I want to talk about this. And to my older people who are more interested in the Revelation study, I want to talk to my younger followers for a second. Since the beginning of time, man has been trying to solve his problems. He's been trying to solve his own problems. We can legitimately go back to Adam. Adam sins. He doesn't even know that he's been disconnected from God yet. He sins, and all of a sudden he notices that he's naked because his innocence is gone. And when he notices that he's naked, he tries to go and put together some clothes out of leaves, which would never work because leaves are going to die once you disconnect them from the vine, which means that they're not going to be able to cover you for long. He tries to fix his own problems. Then we see men trying to sin and figure out their own stuff. Then we see Nimrod. Nimrod galvanizes the people. Nimrod was Noah's grandson. He galvanized the people to build a tower in defiance of God. They go build that tower in defiance of God, trying to see if they can make it to heaven. And part of me believes, and many scholars would back me up, that Nimrod was building that tower because he heard the stories about the flood. And so he was thinking that if we could build a tower tall enough, we could save ourselves from another flood if it should so happen. Not realizing that his grandfather had received the promise that God would never do that again. But he was trying to solve his own problems, okay? And he's the one who founded Babylon. That was at Babel that they have. Babylon, which, as we will see as we progress through this study, is Satan's seat. That's where Satan lives. That's where he rules. And when evil stuff comes about, when demonic concepts come about, that's where they come out of. But it presents this question, can man solve his own problems? Because even when we go back to Adam, when we were disconnected from God, this need to work to try to earn our value and our worth came about. This need to work, we try to work to prove our value. Even Solomon talks about it in Ecclesiastes and in Proverbs, how it is all vanity, but we work and we work and we work and we work with this need trying to prove that we are valuable because we are disconnected from God. But it is in the presence of God that we find wholeness. That's why people spend their whole life searching. Spend your whole life searching, but we work and we try to, but that's why we build up wealth. And I'm guilty. We build up wealth. We get portfolios, and we try to build up our value as if we could find some value in some money or in a cause. That's why we say we need to work and we try to build things. And it, in my very core of who I am, I'm a builder, but it is ingrained in us because we are sinful by nature. And somewhere along the way, we thought we could be saved by our works. But God is constantly saying throughout this canon of Scripture that it would never be by works. And so an angel proclaims, he says, who is worthy to open the scrolls? Worthy, worthy. So who is clean enough, sinless enough, blameless enough, capable of opening the scroll? Who is capable? They ask that question. And I believe that there are many arrogant men who would try. Plenty. You know, I look at this thing and I in some ways admire Elon Musk. I wish he would come to salvation. I somewhat admire him because he's looking at the world's problems and he's trying to get us off of Earth. So he's sending up rockets every week, almost like Nimrod. Throwing up rockets every week, trying to get us to Mars, saying that the earth is going to implode because we've never been in such danger of destroying ourselves. We're in pursuit of peace, but it seems like there's more chaos on the earth than ever before. They're talking about one world government, World Health Organizations. They're talking about the United Nations coming together, but it seems like the more we come together, the more chaos pursues. It's really just setting it up for this book to happen on earth. And so the question remains, who is worthy to open the scrolls? I know we think that if we got the right president or we got somebody out of this office and got them in the right office, we put the right person in power, that it would be good, that the country would be better. If that one wasn't president or this one wasn't president, it just depends on what year you're in and and who you support. If you're blue, you want the red one out. If you're red, you want the blue one out. But the truth is, none of them are they're not worthy, they're not capable, they're not qualified. They're not going to bring about peace, and they darn sure can't get it right. And so he asked, who is worthy? And verse 3, it says, and no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it. They looked in the earth. They looked in heaven. Oh God, that's scary. They looked in heaven and it said nobody was capable. They looked on the earth, said nobody was capable. They looked under the earth, I'm assuming they went down to hell, and nobody was capable. There was nobody qualified to open the scroll. They took an inventory of all of creation, trying to find somebody who could open this scroll, who could open the title deed to the earth. And just as it seemed like all hope was gone, because verse 4 says that John says, I wept so much. And this version says no one. But I think a better version, King James, and I think New Revised Standard says no man. So yeah, they got to, you can be careful with the translations. It says no man was found worthy to open. No man was able to open the scroll. Now I want you to come, let's dig deep, right? Because this revisits the idea of the kinsman redeemer. They're in heaven. They've looked at all the men in heaven, okay? They've looked at all the men in heaven. No man, no woman is capable of opening the scroll. They've looked at all the men and the women on earth. No man, no woman is capable of opening the scroll. They look up under heaven. They go to hell, and no man, no woman is wise enough. Nobody is good enough to open the scroll. No man, no person, no human being, no created thing is capable of opening the scroll. And it revisits this idea of the kinsman redeemer. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this idea of the kinsman redeemer, I invoke you and encourage you to go and spend some time in Ruth. It's only like 4 chapters. But go spend some time in Ruth, because what happens in Ruth is this Moabite woman who hangs out with her mother-in-law after her husband and all the men die. She stays with her. They go back to their homeland, and they're basically nothing. They're at the bottom of society because they're women, and it was an evil day of that time. But there's this man Boaz who is a wealthy man and has fields, and he's got people leaving in the fields, and Boaz notices Ruth. And as he notices Ruth, he says, leave something for her so she can glean in the field and she can be taken care of. And then they go on and they kind of do this little banter, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And one night, Ruth shows up at the feet of Boaz as he was, I think, in the wine press. And she says, will you cover me? Well, see, it turns out that Naomi was related to Boaz, okay? And that all that was theirs before the death of the men could be theirs if a man who could perform would cover them, would redeem them. He was next of kin, so he could marry Ruth, take care of Naomi, and reestablish their status, okay, in society, reestablish their status in society. And so if he could reestablish their status in society, not only does Ruth get a husband out of this, but she gets to be removed from the gutter back up to where they're supposed to be, what she married into, okay? And so this is why the Bible is not a whole set of stories, it's one story. But so he could reestablish that. So y'all know he goes and Boaz goes. He says, well, there's one other person in between me and you who would need to perform first. That guy declines. Boaz marries her and redeems Ruth, redeems Naomi. When he redeems Ruth, he brings up their status out of the gutter, back into their right standing, righteousness, right standing, puts them back where they're supposed to be, and she gets a husband out of it. So then she's able to go have a child, and then, they end up in the lineage of Jesus, because they have Obed. Obed has Jesse. Jesse has David. But it reintroduces this idea of a kinsman redeemer, because remember, we're in heaven. The scroll is a title deed to the earth. Jesus. The deed to the earth, dominion was given to a man, okay? It was given to a man. The dominion was given to Adam. Adam screwed that up, lost the deed. Satan takes it, tricks him, trickery. And then, remember, we go all the way through time. Jesus pays a price. Remember? When Jesus pays a price with his life that Adam didn't have to pay, but that was the price, remember? That was the price. You would surely die if you eat from that tree. Okay, so that was the price. Jesus pays the price. He is blameless, guiltless. There is no sin of his own that he's got to pay for. He pays the price, and what that does is it pays the price for man to be put back in right standing with God. It brings back that idea of the kinsman redeemer. Why am I talking about this? Because they're looking around in all of heaven, in all of earth, in all of hell, looking for somebody who is of kinsman. Okay, who has walked there. This is why Jesus had to be all man and all God. They're looking for somebody of kinsman descent, who is like them, who has experienced them, who had the same blood coursing through their veins, had the same type of soul leading them and in their experience. Because if he had not been of kinsman descent, no man, see, God couldn't do it. I guess he could have, because he's God, he could have changed the rules. But God couldn't do it because God was not man of flesh, okay? He couldn't do it because he wasn't man of flesh. The angels couldn't do it because they weren't man of flesh. I can't do it because I'm sinful. You can't do it because you're sinful. And so they look around, and no man could open. No man was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But verse 5 says, but one of the elders said to me, do not weep. Behold, the Lion, this is why this was important, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, Jesus, the root of David, my God, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, the Lion, because he was a kinsman, and he was a Jew, he has prevailed, he has won, he's already paid the price. And since he has paid the price. Now I want you to see this. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has paid the price. He's prevailed. Now, this verse, before we even get into the exciting point, establishes Jesus as both the root. Good God. It establishes him as both the root and the foundation, that's both the root and the finishing of David's line. In other words, the one who was there in the beginning is the one who solved it in the end. The one who was there in the beginning solves it in the end. So this, revisits this idea of this kinsman redeemer. He is the son of David. He is the son of God. He has walked and he has lived in our experience. This is why he had to be man. He couldn't be all God because then he wouldn't be a kinsman. He couldn't be all man because then he wouldn't be perfect. This is why it's important. So we're in heaven. We're in heaven. We're in heaven. He has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose his 7 seals. Now, this gives us this idea. Now, I could take some time and I could deal with Ruth, or we could do that later. Actually, let's do that later. Verse 6, he says, "And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne are 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb, as though it had been slain." Now, imagine the carnage. You got a perfect, blameless lamb, a lamb that didn't do nothing to nobody, a lamb that didn't hurt nobody, that didn't cause any chaos. He's got this perfect lamb. There had stood a lamb as though he had been slain, just laying right there. This is probably a physical depiction of what Jesus looked like after he ascended out of hell and went and sat at the right hand of his Father. So he goes, he says he's a lamb that had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, not to be pictured in the natural. The horns, we're going to see horns again. Horns are symbolic of strength. Okay, they're symbolic of power. And so when we see this, I don't want you to think about he's got all these eyes, and no, we got eyes and horns. The horns are symbolic of strength. Eyes help you see to the soul. And so let's see, he's got horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, which are sent out into all the earth. God looks to and fro. He looks to and fro. Then verse 7, he says, he came and he took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. Okay. So God is sitting there holding the title deed to the earth. No man can open it. It was given to a man, so it had to be redeemed by a man. And so he comes, and the lamb who has been slain shows up. He takes the deed out of the hand of his father. And when he takes it out of the hand of his father, it is not just tetelestai. Jesus. It's not just tetelestai, but we are now operating in redemption. Tetelestai is what he said at the cross. It is finished. It is paid for. But see, redemption says it's done because I can open it and I can read it. He has access because the war for the title has been fought. The cost has been paid. Now, what we're about to experience, now this is the title deed. Jesus has the title deed to the earth. He has the rights thereof to the earth and to the people of the earth, but Satan is going to be hard to evict. So what we're about to experience in the next several chapters is the eviction of Satan from the earth. He's going to put up a fight. He's going to cause chaos. He's going to call hell. He's going to try to win this war, wage war, but he is going to make an attempt, but they already have the title deed. That is why when we shout about the devil is already defeated, he's already been won. He ain't been put out the house yet, but we have already bought the house. God has already bought us the house that we lost, okay? He's already bought the house that we've lost. Verse 8. So he does that. Verse 8, we begin to see these waves of praise happen. Now, when he has taken the thrones, those 4 living creatures that we talked about, the ones we talked about last time, and the 24 elders that fell down before the Lamb, each having a heart and golden bowls full of incense. Remember, incense are the prayers of the saints, which are that's what it says, which are the prayers of the saints. So he's about to be worshipped for who he is. He's about to be worshiped for where he is, and he's about to be worshiped for what he does. They've got harps. Now, I'm about to get deep for just a second, just because it amazes me. They're holding harps. They're holding harps. And now, according to particle physics, I'm not going to be deep too long, there are 10 dimensions to the universe, okay? There are 4 that are knowable by men. Men study 4 dimensions, but according to physics, there are 10 dimensions, and they have no ability to be able to tap into the other 6, but they know that there are 10 dimensions, right? And so this scripture and many other scriptures alludes to the 10 phases of praise, okay? 10 dimensions that vibrate of praise all to God. So we've got the 4 dimensions. We've got the dimensions that we know, the 4 that we know how to operate in. But worship in heaven, and this might be a little deep, but maybe this will help somebody. But there are 4 dimensions. There are 10 dimensions that we know about, 4 that we know about on earth, 10 that we know exist, 4 that we know how to get access to or to study or to be able to look into, right? There are 10 dimensions in heaven that they are walking in praise and worship to God, all right? And as they worship God, they're worshiping in all 10 dimensions. Okay, that might have been too deep. Maybe that might have been too deep. Verse 9, it says, and they sang a new song, saying, you are worthy to take the scroll and open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation. Okay, I'm building on my case for rapture one more time. He says and have redeemed us to God. Redeemed us to God. Angels don't need redemption. Okay, they can't be redeemed. Angels can't get redemption. God doesn't need redemption. I don't know about the beast, but I believe it's the 24 elders that are singing. They sang a new song, say, you're worthy to take the scroll because you redeemed us to God by your blood. You put us back in right standing, right condition with God. And then verse 10, it says, and have made us kings and priests. We're now of the order of King Melchizedek. You have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. Okay? And then I looked. There's more. And then I looked, and I heard a voice of many angels around the throne, and the living creatures, and the elders, and the number was them 10,000 times 10,000. And thousands and thousands saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. And every creature which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and such are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard saying, blessings and honor and glory and power be to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever. And the 4 living creatures said, amen. And the 24 elders fell down and worshiped him who lives forever and ever and ever. They begin to worship God in multiple phases. They begin to realize that they're worshiping God not because of who he is. They begin to worship God for who he is, for what he does, and where he is. He is in heaven. He is not just the King of Kings walking on the earth. He is now in heaven. And he's now taken the scroll, the title deed to the earth, and he's holding it in his hands. And as he's holding it in his hands, he is able to say, I can open it. I have redeemed, I've paid the price. It's like when I go buy a house, and they put that deed in my hand. I have all rights and privileges thereof. That house belongs to me. I do what I please, how I please, because it is mine. It belongs to me. And as all of heaven was beginning to get sad, as the elders were beginning to get sad, it seemed like the earth was unredeemable. And the things and people they left back were irredeemable. They were now in heaven. And because he has redeemed them to God, he has redeemed them back to God. The elders, I believe, are realizing that's why I'm here. That's how I got the right to be here. We talked about heaven last time, but we're back in heaven, and we're excited about heaven because they're here, because the Lamb was slain. Okay? And so he looks around, and they see the elders, and they see the living creatures, and the number was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands and thousands. So they're looking around, and there's no really way to number them. And they're looking around at all the people, and all of heaven erupts in worship because they come to understand that they are able to be there in worship only because Jesus has paid the price. And here he is redeeming the scroll. And every creature was in heaven and on the earth and under the earth and as in the sea, and all of them were saying, blessings and honor, glory and power. Everybody begins to erupt in heaven, everywhere, because he's now grabbed the scroll, and there's hope for all of us who had no hope, no ability to reconcile ourselves to ourselves. The issue with our world, the problem with our world is that we think we can solve our own problems. Is that we can live a life, we can build a life, and we can do it all by ourselves. We can reconcile ourselves. We can save ourselves. We're just living a life in a simulation, and anything goes. And the arrogance to think that we could, even though every time we try to get it right, we can't do it. Every time we try to make ourselves sinless and blameless, we can't do it. We try to build a community, we try to scrub sin and hate out of people, but educating people does not make people sinless. And I know that we're living in a time where we think that we just need to educate people. If we educate people about sin, we educate people about hate, we educate people about racism, we educate people about this stuff, it'll make it go away. Well, I know a lot of educated people that are very sinful. We can't solve our own problems. And I think it's amplified here by the worship that takes place in heaven, of all places. Because in heaven, they realized they needed a redeemer. Now the angels didn't. God didn't. But we did. We did. We absolutely, positively did. Now, the truth of the matter is this. These scrolls, we're going to dig into those next week. These scrolls are going to cause some chaos on the earth. And you're going to probably want to ask yourself the question, if he's redeeming the earth, why so much pain? But I want you to think of it like this, that you can't fix a problem until you expose a problem. You can't fix a problem until you expose a problem. And so I want to lead you to think today, as we've just dug through Revelation 5, and Jesus has taken the scroll. Things here out are going to seem heinous, and it's going to make you ask questions about how could a loving God, that's what everybody, how could a loving God? But he has to expose a problem before he can fix a problem. And so I want you to stay there. Got questions, shoot me an email, najones@Nineveh, ninevah.org. Let's talk about it, okay? Let's talk about it. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to see what the Spirit is saying to the church. All right, we will pick up this time next week at 6 p.m. Well, no, in chapter 6. We're going to pick up this time next week in chapter 6. All right, y'all be blessed.